In 1942, while the world focused on Hitler's armies in Europe and Japan's rapid expansion across Asia, another battle was quietly emerging far from the headlines. A battle centered on one enormous island in the Indian Ocean, Madagascar. At first glance, it seemed isolated, distant from the main fronts of World War II. But military planners in London believed this island could determine the survival of Allied supply routes connecting Africa, India, the Middle East, and the Pacific. British intelligence feared that if Japanese submarines gained permanent access to Madagascar's harbors, they could attack Allied shipping across the Indian Ocean on an unprecedented scale. Oil shipments, military reinforcements, food supplies, and strategic resources moving between continents could be cut apart. What followed was one of the least discussed campaigns of World War II, a secretive invasion involving naval warfare, amphibious landings, jungle combat, espionage, and former allies fighting each other. This is the story of Madagascar's Shadow War. If you enjoy hidden history, forgotten battles, and cinematic war documentaries that reveal the parts of history rarely taught in school, subscribe and join us as we uncover the wars that changed the world from the shadows. Act 1: The island at the center of the Indian Ocean. To understand why Madagascar mattered so much in 1942, we first need to understand the global situation facing the Allies. By early 1942, the Axis powers appeared unstoppable. Germany dominated much of Europe. North Africa was engulfed in conflict. And in Asia, Imperial Japan had launched a lightning campaign across the Pacific. Following the attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941, Japanese forces rapidly captured territories throughout Southeast Asia. Hong Kong fell. Singapore collapsed. The Dutch East Indies were invaded. And British military planners feared the Japanese Navy could soon project power deep into the Indian Ocean. The Indian Ocean was not simply another body of water. It was one of the most important logistical arteries on Earth. Allied shipping routes carried oil from the Middle East, troops from India and Africa, and supplies needed to sustain British operations across multiple continents. Large convoys regularly passed through the Mozambique Channel, the narrow stretch of ocean between Madagascar and southeastern Africa. If enemy submarines or naval forces established operational bases along this route, Allied shipping losses could become catastrophic. And this concern was not theoretical. Japanese submarines had already demonstrated their ability to conduct long-range operations. In early 1942, Japanese carrier forces launched raids into the Indian Ocean, attacking British naval positions and sinking Allied ships. The psychological effect of these attacks was enormous. British leadership feared the Indian Ocean could become the next major theater of war. At the same time, Madagascar itself was controlled by Vichy France. After France surrendered to Germany in 1940, the collaborationist Vichy government retained control over several French colonies, including Madagascar. Although officially neutral, Vichy territories were viewed with deep suspicion by Britain. British officials worried that Germany or Japan might pressure Vichy authorities into granting access to Madagascar's ports. One harbor in particular alarmed Allied planners: Diego Suarez. Located at the northern tip of Madagascar, Diego Suarez possessed one of the finest natural harbors in the Indian Ocean. Its strategic location made it ideal for submarine operations. British intelligence assessments warned that if Japanese submarines operated from Diego Suarez, they could threaten shipping routes extending from the Cape of Good Hope to India. The consequences could reshape the balance of the war. Prime Minister Winston Churchill himself considered the danger serious enough to demand immediate action. Churchill later described Madagascar as strategically vital to maintaining Allied control of the Indian Ocean. In British war planning documents, the island increasingly appeared not as a remote colony, but as a potential gateway for Axis naval expansion. Modern historians continue to debate how close Japan truly came to establishing a permanent base in Madagascar. However, historical records confirm that Japanese submarines were already operating in the region during 1942. Japanese midget submarines even participated in attacks near Madagascar during the campaign. British fears therefore emerged from real military developments rather than pure speculation. According to official British naval records and later historical analyses, the protection of Indian Ocean supply routes became one of the primary justifications for military intervention. The operation received the codename, Operation Ironclad. Operation Ironclad began in May 1942. It would become the first major British amphibious assault of the Second World War. A large naval task force moved toward Madagascar carrying thousands of British and Commonwealth troops. Warships, aircraft carriers, destroyers, landing craft, and support vessels assembled for the operation. Their objective was clear: capture Diego Suarez before enemy powers could transform it into a strategic naval base. As dawn approached on May 5, British forces launched their assault. Naval bombardments shook the coastline. Aircraft attacked defensive positions. Landing craft surged toward the beaches. But the invasion carried a strange and uncomfortable reality. The defenders were not German soldiers. They were French. Many Vichy troops stationed on Madagascar considered themselves loyal to France, even though the Vichy government collaborated with Nazi Germany. As a result, British and French forces who had fought together earlier in the war now found themselves killing each other. The emotional complexity of the campaign remains one of its least discussed aspects. Some French commanders resisted fiercely. Others hesitated. Confusion spread across both sides. Despite heavy resistance, British forces gradually secured Diego Suarez. But capturing the harbor did not end the campaign. Madagascar was enormous. The island stretched across vast terrain filled with mountains, dense forests, rivers, swamps, and difficult roads. Securing the entire island would require months of additional fighting. As British troops pushed deeper into Madagascar, the war changed completely. The battlefield itself became an enemy. Extreme heat exhausted soldiers. Tropical diseases spread rapidly. Rain transformed roads into mud. Supply lines became increasingly difficult to maintain. Many troops encountered conditions unlike anything they had experienced before. Small engagements erupted across forests and isolated settlements. Vichy defenders used the terrain to delay Allied advances. Ambushes and defensive positions slowed progress. Meanwhile, the fear of Japanese involvement continued to haunt British command. Those fears intensified dramatically in late May 1942. Japanese submarines launched operations near Madagascar in direct support of Axis interests. During one of the attacks, Japanese midget submarines infiltrated the harbor at Diego Suarez. Historical records confirm that they successfully torpedoed the British battleship HMS Ramillies and sank another vessel. The attack shocked Allied commanders. It appeared to validate British fears that Madagascar could indeed become part of a wider Japanese naval strategy in the Indian Ocean. The campaign now carried even greater urgency. British forces accelerated efforts to secure the island completely before further Japanese operations could occur. Evidence for these events comes from multiple wartime sources. British naval reports documented the submarine attacks in detail. Japanese wartime records also confirmed submarine activity near Madagascar. Historians studying the Indian Ocean theater frequently point to the attack on HMS Ramillies as proof that the strategic threat was real. The campaign demonstrated how global World War II had become. Even remote islands thousands of miles from Europe could suddenly become critical battlegrounds. By late 1942, Allied forces steadily tightened their control over Madagascar. Vichy resistance weakened. Key towns and supply routes fell into British hands. Finally, in November 1942, organized resistance collapsed. Madagascar was secured, the Indian Ocean shipping lanes remained open. Large-scale Axis naval expansion into the region never fully materialized. For the Allies, the campaign achieved its strategic objective. Yet despite its importance, the Madagascar campaign rarely occupies a major place in public memory. The world remembers Normandy. It remembers Stalingrad. It remembers Pearl Harbor. But the struggle for Madagascar faded into the shadows of history. And yet, historians increasingly recognize that the campaign played a significant role in protecting Allied maritime logistics during one of the most dangerous periods of the war. Without secure shipping routes through the Indian Ocean, Allied operations across Africa, the Middle East, and Asia would have faced enormous additional pressure. Madagascar became one of those rare places where geography itself shaped global history. The soldiers who fought there endured jungle warfare, tropical disease, submarine attacks, and brutal uncertainty. Many never fully understood how important their mission truly was. But in the vast darkness of the Indian Ocean, far from the headlines of Europe, a forgotten island became the center of a global struggle. And for a brief moment in 1942, the future of Allied supply lines and perhaps the balance of the war itself depended on Madagascar. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of World War II's forgotten campaigns, subscribe for more hidden history, secret battles, and untold stories from the shadows of history. And let us know in the comments, what forgotten war or mysterious historical event should we uncover next?